District to order. Let's see here. Laura, would you make note that all members are present? Thank you. Let's stand for the flag salute, please. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to have a motion for approval of the agenda. So moved. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries by vote. All right, we will go to item B on the consent agenda. Oh, wait, excuse me. Public comments. Is there anybody here who wants to speak on any item that is not on the agenda? All right, thank you. Now we'll go to the consent agenda B. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. Second. Sorry. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Opposed? All right, motion carries by vote. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Sorry. Aye. 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 Thank you, Laura. All right. So the next item is action agenda. I want everybody to know that you will have public comments. All the cards you turned in will be right before that item, which is item D, and right now we are at item C. Okay? So, item C1, approval of resolution 2018-19-2 regarding Center Glass Company, Derek's Roofing Incorporated, Tierra Contracting Incorporated, Phase 2 Modernization Notice of Completion. Superintendent Corey?
This is for a scope of work that has been completed, and we have been holding on to retention payments in order to tackle the last of the punch list items. Those have been completed, and so now we are releasing that retention payment. So this will wrap up all of these scopes of work.
I move for approval of resolution 2018-2019 regarding all of what is written in front of the modernization notice of completion.
Do we have a second? Second. So we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution 2018-19-12. Is there any discussion? All right. Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are down to item D, which is the consideration for reduction in force. A couple of things that I want to review with everybody, and that is, first of all, I appreciate, and I think the board appreciates, everybody who is here today, everybody who has sent email, letters, notes, etc. This is a, believe me, a discussion and a conversation that the board is looking forward to listening to everybody. It's a tough conversation. I ask that people be respectful and considerate of others. In particular, if there are employees in the room who possibly are going to be terminated. Remember that each person who speaks has 3 minutes. The podium is there. I will call you up by the card. There's a clock here that says 3 minutes. When you begin, the clock starts. Kind of keep an eye on it. Sometimes 3 minutes goes a long time. Sometimes it goes very quickly for you, depending on the speaker. Please don't exceed the 3 minutes. I need to stop you because there are quite a few people who want to speak. Are there any questions regarding the process? All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So, and I apologize if I mispronounce somebody's name, okay? Chris Avery.
Thank you for having us here. More than a PE teacher and a three-sport coach, Josh McClurg is an academic intervention specialist for an at-risk population. He directly promotes and arranges community outreach, builds a sense of community and belonging to something larger than yourself. He promotes pride, scholarship, racial harmony, justice, and community pride. More important than just a football season, it is about a setting that is created that benefits cheerleading, band, FFA, OLA, and all of their fundraising activities. One could argue that a quality on-campus coach for the highest pressure, highest visibility athletic program in the school is more important than even an athletic director. I would not disagree with that. Any options that can maintain a vital on-campus coach from being removed from the most visible sports program in the community must be explored. We need more on-campus coaches, not less. Josh is so much more than a PE teacher and a coach. He's a husband, father, Wall of Honor member, teacher, counselor, academic advisor, staff, and student leader. It could be argued that his position is the most vital in all of the athletic department. Plus the safety and security of the boys' locker room by having a full-time PE teacher that is there on site all the time. Josh adds value to the campus beyond the line item in the budget. His value cannot be replaced or discounted.
Thank you, Chris. Julie Kennedy.
Thank you. As a former board member, I know exactly what this feels like. It's an unenviable position to be in. However, I would just ask that the board give greater weight to retaining those teachers and faculty members, et cetera, that contribute directly to the education of our kids. That's what this school is about. The certificated and classified salaries together, if you total those two items, the certificated is almost 1/3 of that. So it seems to me that given the recommendations, if you looked at doing the superintendent / principal combo and or the vice principal combo, you save quite a substantial amount of money that could easily go to fund to keeping teachers on staff. So again, I would just implore you, we're cutting all so close to the edge, and as soon as we start to cut right into educational services, that impacts our next generation. I would further like to add that last year at this time when cuts were having to be made short of the deficit, English took a pretty heavy hit. And I noticed that on the recommendations I see English again. And the result last year was a larger than average classroom on the English side. And that's a lot of extra work, a lot of extra stress for teachers, especially in a really, really critical area of education. So again, more weight towards preserving education and what we need to do to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Quincy Valley.
Hi, my name is Quincy, and the removal of Josh McClurg would be detrimental to the teaching staff of Santa Ynez High School, where there is truly no teacher with such integrity, determination, and concern for the well-being of his students and the athletes he's coached. Being Coach McClurg's teacher's assistant going on for 2 years now, I have been able to see firsthand how he pushes his freshman PE students to pass their fitness gram test. He meticulously creates a strengthening program to work on every aspect of the test, whereas some teachers of any high school could care less if he passed. Josh McClurg is doubtless the epitome of a true Santa Ynez pirate and leads by example in guiding the values used to success. Not only have I been his TA, but I have also had him as a football coach. Never once has Coach McClurg given up on me, and he continues to encourage me through all adversities of being a female football player. He has taught me lifelong lessons that I will never forget, such as how to be mentally strong, how to have confidence in myself, how to be a teammate, but most importantly, how to be a leader. Josh McClurg always has a perfect advice when anyone on the team is going through the hardships of, and many of us, including myself, wouldn't be the people we are today had he not been there to lend a helping hand. Taking a staff member like Josh McClurg away would kill the pirate spirit in us. Top-notch organizations like Santa Ynez High School must attract and retain top-notch talent, or they cannot be top-notch.
Josh McClure.
Good afternoon, my name is Josh. I'm currently a PE teacher at Santa Ynez High School, and I'm an alumni, a husband, and a parent of current and future Pirate students. Most importantly, I am a coach. I am the head varsity football coach, head freshman basketball coach, and assistant track coach. I'm only allowed 3 minutes to speak today because apparently my job, my students, my livelihood, my football program, and Pirate Pride are worth only 3 minutes. In our football program, we teach our players to control the controllables. Essentially, you cannot blame weather, referees, other players for any adversity you face or for a loss. However, you can control your effort, your attitude, and your teamwork. I have preached toughness, perseverance, resilience, and playing for the man or woman next to you because I am a coach. I will never give up, never stop fighting for what is right because I am a coach. I held morning weights for the football team this morning, knowing what is about to happen to me because I am a coach. I had to sit down with my family at dinner last night and explain to my sons what's about to happen to me, and at the same time let them know I will fight to the end for my players and my students because I am a coach. I'm not just a teacher, I'm a coach. I have been outspoken and proactive about teachers being compensated appropriately in our district. Currently, our spending on supplies and services have skyrocketed. All the while, total percentage of outgo on teacher salary and benefits has decreased in the last 6 years, 74% down to 61% as of the first interim report this year. That could be because we continue to not fill retired teacher spots. So we have already cut 4 to 5 teacher positions in the last 5 years, and Mr. Corey's solution, cut more. I ask all of you in this room to question why there are no recommendations to cut books and supplies, which doesn't just cover books and supplies, it can cover janitorial supplies, cell phone bills for admin, basically anything. When is it too much? As taxpayers, we should demand to put the students first. We are in the people business. Our product is student achievement and preparing them for the real world, something you can't put a price tag on. To be honest, it does not surprise me that I have been recommended for my position to be cut. I have been on the teacher negotiations team for 6 years, and I have been put into tough situations because I choose to advocate for my colleagues and for the students. Truth be told, many of my colleagues fear speaking up in support of teachers and for what is best for students because they fear punishment of some kind. I've spoken up and respectfully advocated for my colleagues because I am a leader and a coach. So a retaliatory and punitive move like this does not surprise me. It reaffirms what we all thought would happen. On paper, my colleagues and I are just a salary, something that is easy to cut. What you can't see on paper is what the teacher does for the school culture, for the students, and for Pirate Pride. In sports, we call those intangibles. In conclusion, I ask the board to be accountable to students, to this community, to the athletic program, and to Pirate Pride by recommending Mr. Corey come up with solutions that keep all cuts away from the classroom and our students. I beg the board to control the controllables and refuse to make cuts that affect the classroom. Thank you.
Good afternoon, my name is Jacob Davies. In my time at Santa Ynez High School, Coach McClurg has put together 2 8-2 seasons and a CIF run. Being one of Mr. McClurg's teacher's assistants and raising livestock with his sons, I have seen firsthand how great of a person he is and how he perfectly embodies Pirate Pride. He always pushes me to be my best, helps me build strong character, and encourages me to always stand up for what I believe in. Most of the football team can agree that he is like a second father to us because he truly cares about us and tries to understand our lives, unlike most other teachers. Playing football under Coach McClurg and having him as my position coach, I was able to see our team come together. We became family. I have played sports my whole life, more than 12 years, more than 30 teams, more than 75 coaches, and I have never felt the camaraderie and togetherness of this year's team on my first year of varsity football, coached by Mr. McClurg. Coach McClurg does a lot more than just coach football and teach physical education here at Santa Ynez High School. He has taught our team and many others more than any teacher can possibly teach. He has taught us preparation, accountability, selflessness, resiliency, and how to be hardworking young men and women of America. Coach has taught our team the importance of being part of something bigger than yourself, playing for the man or woman next to you. The impact Coach McClurg has left on me will be with me forever, and he will always be looked back on as one of the greatest mentors in my life. SYV UHSD Board of Education, Mr. Scott Corey, I hope and urge that you deeply consider the cutting of Mr. Josh McClurg's positions as head coach and PE instructor. The positive impact he has left on the whole Santa Ynez Valley has been immense. He has coached through and created some of the best times in my life. Without the return of Coach, next year's football season will be negatively affected, but most importantly, the future generations of Santa Ynez Pirates will have an injurious effect. Thank you for your time.
Anthony Gills.
Hello, my name is Anthony Gills, and I've known Coach McClurg for 6 years now. He's been my high school coach for 3 of them. I'm here to share the impact that Coach has made on my life, the school, and the community. Personally, Coach has taught me a lot. Some things about football, like how to read defenses, make the correct decision on play, and know where their seer is before I throw the ball. But most importantly, most important things I've learned are more about life and being a good human. He's taught me how to keep composure under pressure, and why it is important to have respect for coaches, teachers, teammates, classmates, and myself. Something Coach McClurg has strongly instilled in the field and in the classroom is hard work, toughness, discipline, and responsibility. He's the kind of coach you don't just want to play for, you want to win for. It's my goal to make him proud of me. Second to my parents, he's the second person I want to tell about all my achievements. He's made a huge impact on my teammates and has gone above and beyond the call of duty to help us with anything we need. He's been a positive change in the course of many students and players' lives. Not only is he making a change in the varsity football team, but in the lives of many freshmen that take his PE class. Any of my friends who had Coach as their teacher speak very highly of him. He also teaches a leadership class for about 10 returning football players on the team each year. We go over the key points of how to make you a great leader and person on and off the field. He's found a unique way to create an atmosphere of family on the football field. We play for the man next to us. There's nothing we wouldn't do for anyone on the team, including all of our coaches. It would be unfortunate for the school board not to recognize the importance of the value that Coach McClurg's impact on the school and in this community. Coach McClurg has a lot of sayings. The one that stands out the most is control the controllables. We cannot control the outcome of this meeting, but we can control our unity and level of support for our leader. I strongly ask to explore these factors before making a decision that negatively impacts the lives and futures of many. Thank you.
Matt Conan. Did I say that correctly, Matt? Oh. And right. Okay.
All right, good afternoon. Today I'm here to speak on the behalf of Coach McClurg in the possible termination of his coaching and teaching spot. Coach McClurg, for the ones who don't really know him, see him as just our school PE teacher and football coach. But for us, Coach is valued much more than that. People think that a player and a coach's relationship is confined to the commonality of their love for the game. Well, my brothers and sister and I can assure you that the material Coach McClurg has given us goes beyond the game. The lessons Coach has taught us has and forever will be implemented into our lives as he showed us the value of family and the mindset we must have to face any adversity coming our way. Coach McClurg and his involvement in the community has also showed me how deep the Pirate tradition goes. Most importantly, Coach McClurg has guided me into becoming the person I am today. Sure, someday I will forget the fundamentals of football, of which Coach has taught me, but the mental toughness and the responsibility in which a man must possess is something I will never forget. And for that, I will never be able to repay Coach McClurg. But I can stand here today with a full heart and tell you that Coach McClurg is much more than just our coach. And to take his position away would be taking a big role model away, and most importantly, taking away a man who had the ability to take a troublemaking kid like myself and turn him into a man who has shown me what is actually worth fighting for. So here I am, fighting for what's worth fighting for. And to relinquish Coach of his duties would be the biggest mistake the board could make. Thank you.
Peggy Kelly.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Over the past past several years, I've attended budget presentations at both faculty and board meetings, and I have some thoughts I'd like to share. Based on my research and what I've heard stated at board meetings, I've learned that school districts typically spend 75 to 85% of their budgets on salaries and benefits. In the past 5 years, our district's spending on personnel has dropped from 75% to 61%, which is significantly below the average. To suggest further cuts to personnel at this point would be harmful to the excellent educational program we currently provide. The notion that we need to cut staffing comes from what I see as a misperception about one-time funds. I understand the concept behind using one-time funds for only one-time expenditures, and on the surface, it makes complete sense. However, I think there may be a problem with how we are defining one-time funds. It would be helpful to know how often in the past 10, 20, or even 50 years the district has received $0 in one-time funding. I'd venture to guess that's been a rare occurrence. If, as I suspect, we do in fact receive one-time funding each year, then we should redefine how we approach the use of one-time funds. The current approach has caused our reserve to grow significantly each year, while it should have remained static. I encourage you to analyze historical data on one-time funding, determine what we can reasonably expect to receive each year, and budget accordingly. Our district can then maintain a moderate reserve to draw from in the unlikely event that we encounter an anomalous year with zero one-time funding. As a basic aid district, we receive more funding per pupil than 90% of the districts in the state. Rather than cutting personnel, we should be adding a much-needed full-time at-risk counselor. Our budget decisions should be based on reasonable expectations of future funding, not overly conservative estimates that result in unreasonable cuts and a ballooning reserve. I urge you to carefully examine historical data and develop a reasoned approach to the budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I haven't been slotted as Louis Suman. Said French.
So I'm Louis Suman, and I'm here to talk about Coach McClurg. He is one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life, and I would have never played football if it wasn't for him. And I don't think I would play anywhere else if it wasn't for Santa Ynez. He taught us everything, and I didn't know anything about football. He taught us everything, and I want to keep playing because he is the greatest guy ever meet. And firing him would be like a charitable statement because he is honestly the best coach, best teacher, best everything. You could go up to him and with problems, and he would give you like how to solve them. And I don't even, after 3 years of knowing him, I don't even think of him as a coach or a PE teacher. I honestly think of him as like a second dad champ. And I love the guy. Thank you.
Melanie Dickey.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I appreciate the weight of your task at hand. I also appreciate the wisdom of using projections and budgeting. What I ask of you before you make this critical decision is to take some time to look at all your options and to learn from decisions made in our recent history. Just last year, the previous board cut through a Foothill High School dean position along with 2 teaching positions because of an incomplete view of the budget last spring. We immediately felt the overwhelmingly negative effects of those cuts on the students. Wisely, when the actual money flowed in months later, the position was restored and our school community could go back to learning. I'm asking you to consider this lesson learned just a few months ago and to take some time to really think about the choices available to meet our financial demands. To buy the time necessary to critically and effectively solve demands on our budget, you could put off staff cuts by using the money sitting in the reserve. It's a great investment to take a small fraction of your savings to buy 1 year of time to critically think and discover a solution that supports and dignifies the community you serve. Simply, solving our budget woes with cuts to staff hurts students. Every current psychological and medical study indicates our adolescents are more anxious and depressed than ever before. Reducing the number of adults who are available for kids is the exact opposite of what they need, cramming more stressed, depressed kids into fewer spaces with less adult supervision is irresponsible and dangerous. You owe it to the parents who entrust their children to us to adhere to the mission of Santa Ynez High School, which I quote, provide a rigorous and broad academic experience supported by a rich set of career, technical, and extracurricular options. Cutting staff is antithetical to leading Santa Ynez High School in its mission. Please use the money you already have to give yourself time to investigate more options. Thank you.
Kathleen Cortopassi.
Coming here today to speak about the budget, I will speak in general ideas with approximate numbers. It looks as though the school needs to, or probably wants to, which is the question, skim about $700,000 off the budget for the next 3 to 4 years in order to balance the budget. It seems the administration wants to be very understanding and only do about half that. Apparently the cutbacks need to happen because of past budgets haven't been balancing with surprise last money or one-time funds. Wasn't in the budget. Virtually, this is the entire basis of what's going on here. Any proposed cuts seem absolutely foolish. Administration to the classroom, special ed, auto choir, bound, PEEs seem wild and absolutely dramatic. I equate the money to knowing that if one gets a bonus from their boss, you may not want to use that money, but you choose to use it for children's sports, dance, art lessons. It's not in your budget or your contract, but you use it anyway to provide extra things for your children. Then all of a sudden you say, hey, we're cutting it off. Why? I don't know. But now your child's an amazing artist, dancer. What do? Why would anybody do that? Sure, be vigilant with your taxpayer money means spending our money well intended, but it actually means to spend it. Using our reserve, yes or no. If you use real numbers to balance our budget, not the 2.5, but closer to the 4% that we usually get, and use a proper average of the surprise money, one-time money, you will see we will read the numbers as you do. You need to do nothing at this point. Lastly, if you cut just because you want to, keep it away from the classrooms. We are talking about real adults, our teachers, who are already really impacted, and students who use our extra classes from Santa Ynez High. And a question, if we get the extra money as expected, will you feel that the best choice for our students was to actually cut the money and let it slide into our reserves? Literally, our reserve has grown, as we said, for the last 5 years. Why wouldn't you choose to cut the programs after you see a need, not before? If you don't get the one-time money, then possibly cut. So as I say, to project scenarios seems very dramatic, a waste of time. You may want to rethink how you want to spend our one-time surprise money on the students or sliding it into the reserve. Thank you.
Marissa Scoggins.
Hello, thank you for your time this afternoon. My name is Marissa Scoggins, and this is my 4th year teaching English at Santa Ynez High School. That number is but a fraction of the years of service put in by many of my colleagues, and it's true I sometimes feel new to this profession. I'm constantly learning and growing, as we all are. And when I started 4 years ago, I was under the distinct impression schools were student-centered institutions for learning. What deeply concerns me is the direction that we are headed, and that schools are savings accounts where learning sometimes happens. The budget is a concern. However, any amount to be deducted from our yearly spending should absolutely come from areas other than personnel. These budget cuts should not be impacting people and should instead come from books and supplies or other operating expenses. People run this school, not budgets. Our office staff is just as critical to our school community as teachers and administrators, and ripple effects are inevitable when these people are spread thin.
Cutting positions and piling on duties is not a viable solution, a lesson I thought we learned when we cut the Refugio administrative position. Inevitably, the cut of personnel like our staff services technician and suspension supervisor will hurt students, the people we are here to serve. Our staff services extraordinaire does so much more than make copies. She is the secretary for over 40 teachers. She puts together booklets in place of textbooks for our math department. She produces programs for school events. She is secretary to the athletic director and manages sports permits for our hundreds of students. Losing this position creates an unnecessary burden on teachers on top of growing class size and will absolutely be felt by students. Similarly, losing our suspension supervisor leaves no place for at-risk students to go. Where will these students be sent? How are we serving our kids if we keep them in environments that aren't conducive for learning? Additionally, the supervisor is present at all of our Wednesday night tutorials. Losing this presence will hurt our tutoring program. If we hurt students now, we fail our students, we fail the parents, we fail our community. I understand and appreciate the need to be fiscally responsible. The long-term health of a school is absolutely related to its budget. Periodically, it may be necessary to trim the fat. But if we care for our students and staff, budget reductions should not impact the people that make this place special. We are already a lean and mean machine. There's no fat to give. Why are we oversaturating the people that give the majority of their day to students in academics, athletics, and the arts? Please consider budget reductions that do not harm students. Thank you for your time.
Jeff Reck.
Hello, my name is Jeff Reck. I've taught English here for 38 years, and I love this place. Both of my children went to this high school and went on to great colleges, and it's been a great run for 38 years, and I still love my classes today, and I want to thank the board for giving us some time this afternoon to speak. I'm going to address the increasing ending fund balance versus structural deficit. In recent years, we have been told of a structural deficit, yet the ending fund balance often increases $1 million or so up to the current $6.5 million reserve. To be sure, the structural deficit argument is fiscally prudent, but when used to a fault, it is an aggressive form of accounting based on baseline estimates while ignoring possible or even probable mitigating factors. Additionally, we save $1 million here and $1 million there beyond the narrowest interpretations because of the cuts already made over the past 10 years. Besides cutting out the IB program, saving us up to $250,000 per year, we have cut our certified librarian, cut back 1 counselor, and cut 1 art teacher. We have completely cut out French and Latin, and we are down to 1 world language, Spanish, which is also now threatened with ballooning class sizes. Altogether, these cuts, down to the bone, help save us millions of dollars the past several years. And though we have part-time drama and music band programs, good for meeting the UC requirements, these are also possible cuts, an arm and a leg. These could protect our massive 30% reserve and possibly our extra reserve beyond that, while the most important issues, our students, get less and less. The tail is beginning to wag the dog. We have huge reserves right now to weather a few storms. Then in 5 years, the stadium will be paid off. The general fund will save hundreds of thousands of dollars every year right there. In the meantime, we have the top English scores in the county and in the tri-counties. We are a nationally recognized elite public high school. Let's not gut the rest of the carcass to save our ever-growing surplus. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Porter.
Well, first of all, let me say I'm very pleased to see a lot of young people here today. You're seeing democracy in action at its most basic level. And there will be decisions made that we may like or we may not like, but our voices have been heard, and members of the board, I appreciate that. As you know, I have sat in those seats before, and I have voted to send out pink slips and terminate teachers and staff. And some of the only regrets I have from the decisions I made as a board member was sending out some of those pink slips and terminating some amazing teachers and cutting some programs that I regret to this day. You have time. There's a lot of things going on. You do have a structural deficit, but I would encourage you to take a deep breath. You have time. You have a reserve. This is one of the things that it's for. There are many things going on the outside in the meantime where we, and I say we as a community, could help ourselves. Let's remember why we're in some of the positions that we are right now. Our esteemed county supervisor, by her votes, has cut hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, millions of dollars over the years by her votes. You are elected politicians. What are you doing to go out and try to fix that? One of the Valley superintendents just the other day spoke in public forum against the new pipeline coming off the south coast. That pipeline means millions of dollars to this school district over time. And right now, no dollars are flowing from it. Has anybody contacted that superintendent and let him know what it means for our school district and those poor folks down there at Vista Del Mar? There's a lot of things we could be doing on the positive side to put our school district in a better position. We have extremely savvy and knowledgeable board members who can go out and do that. We have the luxury of an outward-facing superintendent in addition to an inward-facing principal to facilitate some of these kinds of things. Let's go out and extend the boundaries of our school district into areas over near Lompoc. Those tax dollars provide no money to the Lompoc district, but could provide millions of dollars to this school district. Let's go find other ways to make money. Let's take a deep breath. The staff and faculty of any school is a Chinese puzzle, and all of the pieces, one by one, may not seem such a big deal, but collectively they are an extremely big deal. Let's don't let this turn into, are we going to let Mr. So-and-so go or Mrs. So-and-so go? But let's look at the overall picture and, like I said, take a deep breath and do what's best for our community. Thank you.
Chip Benega.
Hi, thank you. Heard a lot of talk about money, so I brought a little graph here too as well. I do feel nervous, Tori, because I see you taking notes on the speeches here. So, anyway, my name is Chip Benega. I've taught here for 29 years. And one of the things that an oncologist tells you when you're diagnosed with stage 4 cancer is not, here's what you should be doing in 3 years. Here's what we're going to be doing. And 3 years out is so far out that you don't even talk about it. There are too many variables that occur during that time to actually make a really reasonable, valid prediction about what's going to occur. And my wife's taught at Salt Lake School for years. And one of the things that does happen is that 3 years out, you know, one of the reasons we're here is because we hear this word insolvency thrown out. And, you know, it's one of those things that, yeah, numbers do matter, but you know what? That 3-year number isn't a real number. It's just out there. And the dirty secret is that there are a lot of districts that kind of go, you know what, we're not going to really make that number in 3 years, so this is what we're going to tell the county we're going to do. And maybe they do it. Maybe they restructure the middle school and change it. But 3 years out is just not something that's really talked about a lot. As I say, we're here because of insolvency. Unfortunately, we're not here because of leadership. I think we're here because of panic. And that's just not a good place to be at all. One of the reasons I brought this up here is because the trends over the last years here, and I appreciate it. Board and Scott and Mark, you've done a great job at running the school. They're tremendous teachers and students here. People you should be proud of. But the trend for the budget and the reserve has just been to go up, up, up. We're doing great here on all this stuff. There is no trend line going down. And to rush to this before March 15th just makes your head turn. between we've got to spend for a new administrator, no we can't, we got to cut 250,000, next week we got to cut 400,000. It's just, it's something that we need to, as Mr. Porter said, just pause. And in my last couple times, minutes here, I'd just like to say two things. One is just relax, choose a prudent course. In the long run, if you really are believing that this number is there, that this structured deficit is really there, one of the things that you have to do is ultimately address either the numbers budgeting to make it more realistic, or eventually dealing with the number of credits that we have at this school and put it more in line with what other county schools do. And if you do that, you can potentially go with a soft landing as teachers retire. So thank you, it's a thankless job, and I appreciate you being here, and I really appreciate the students being here.
Shelley Donahue.
Thank you for having us here. I'm really happy to see such a great turnout for what seems to be a really quickly put together special meeting. A decision about the future of not only my child, but all of our children. This budget cut reduction of teachers and programs will impact us all greatly. Why on earth would you even consider to start cutting the budget where it will impact our children the most in such a negative way? Cutting teachers and programs should not even be a topic. Teacher and program cut will lead to increase of class size and the possibility of students not able to fulfill requirements necessary when applying for college. It is quite obvious to me, if you have to choose a cut, to go with the option of reducing administration as noted on page 33 of your packet, options for reduction of staff. If I'm reading your proposal correctly, there is a possible savings of $354,968 if you restructure the superintendent, principal, and vice principal positions. Could we save even more money if we had only one superintendent for all the school districts here in the Valley? To pay into the salary, all schools could save money for the teachers who are teaching our future. Thank you.
Marna Pausgard.
Thank you for this opportunity. I would like to commend all the students that have spoken. They have been eloquent, they have been caring, and that is because of the teaching staff at this school. I recently retired from Raytheon. I managed $100 million a year in overhead budgets. The last thing you ever want to do is let people go. People are the essence of an organization. I urge the board to look at all aspects, all options before cutting people. It can be done. I have sat in those shoes and I've had to make budget cuts and slow those out, and they are painful. But there are ways around budget cuts without people. And when we had to do it, our general manager said, start with me. I don't see that happening here. So I urge you, you have the reserves. Use the reserves to buy yourself time and look at all the options available. The students here deserve it. This is an elite school. It gets great test scores. The kids go to college. They care about their teachers. My goodness, how often do you see that? So I urge you, look at everything, use your reserves, buy time. These kids' lives are worth it. They're our future. Thank you.
Heather Blanchard.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Blanchard, and I am a parent of a senior, Joseph, and a freshman, Cora. I have been an elementary teacher for the past 28 years. I have come here today to make 2 requests. First, I am literally begging you to not cut the Intro to Ed program. Anyone who knows me knows that I am a passionate advocate for literacy as well as for the teaching profession. I have served as a mentor teacher for a number of years, and this year had the privilege of being a guest teacher in Mrs. Kelly's class. I was so inspired by this work that it led me to apply for and receive a grant from SBCEO that would allow me to continue this work and teach a series of lessons on literacy in the elementary classroom for the Intro to Ed program next year. But I cannot do that if you cut the program. In a time when teacher education programs are turning out fewer and fewer candidates each year for the past decade, I cannot understand why cutting this program would even be an option. California is facing an unprecedented teacher shortage. It behooves us to do all we can to attract the best and brightest to our noble profession. My son is one of those best and brightest. He has been considering a career in education, but his work in Mrs. Kelly's class has solidified his desire to become a high school history teacher. I quote him, "I know teaching is fulfilling and rewarding." He's absolutely right. He may not have reached this conclusion without spending time in actual classrooms working with actual students. Secondly, I ask that in solving this latest budget crisis, you not cut teachers. I have been in the profession for a long time, and am always amazed that when financial times are tough, the first personnel to be cut are teachers. The very people who have daily contact with and the greatest impact on the lives of students. You know who is rarely cut? Administrators. The people whose salaries are double, triple, even quadruple that of a teacher. Is it a coincidence that they create the budget? I think not. One of your most important jobs as board members is to approve the budget. I challenge you, the Santa Ynez Board, to be brave, be bold, do not cut programs or teachers. Find another way.
Gordon White.
My name is Gordon White, and this is regarding the in-school suspension intervention center and the work that is performed that I do as suspension supervisor and campus security. Having held this position since October 2006, there is still a need for a place for students to go when they become disruptive in a classroom or out of control on campus. The importance of maintaining this position has to do with providing a classroom setting, namely A3, for disruptive students and students who have behavior issues and or break school rules. Teachers, vice principal, and principal may remove student or students from classroom or campus areas per California Education Code. The primary purpose of the In-School Suspension Intervention Center, better known as A3, is to foster a positive environment through a calm but firm approach. This gives students the opportunity to regain a calm and logical perspective. While in room A3 attending, students make attempts to review their own mistakes to avoid future mistakes. The position of suspension supervisor is important in that it helps to focus on disruptive students in the classroom. By removing the small number of disruptive students from the classroom, it ensures that the majority or the most of our students obtain uninterrupted quality education. Thank you very much.
Lisa Melby.
Hello, my name is Lisa Melby. I'm a parent of a sophomore at Santa Ynez High School and a teacher in the Santa Union School District. I thank you for allowing me to speak today. As a parent, these reductions in force worry me because I know it means higher class sizes and fewer elective options for my daughter and her peers. We know that electives allow students to follow that which they are passionate about and are where we see students who don't always succeed in required math, English, or social science courses flourish. As a teacher, I've been through many difficult budget situations, pretty recently in Buellton. I understand the impact of expected STRS and PERS increases and realize the extent to which special education pulls from the general fund. Many school districts are struggling with these realities. It's not an easy situation for anyone. Board members and administrators struggle to maintain fiscal stability while parents and teachers are left with questions about how we got here and how we're going to fix it all while protecting our kids. If you look at this district's 2018-19 services and operating expenses, which is monies not spent on teachers, the first interim figure is $100,000 greater than what you budgeted for. If you look at total salaries and benefit cost percent of total outbill, you budgeted 67.59% of the spending to be towards teachers. At first interim, this percentage was down to 61. For those in the audience who don't understand this, because it's confusing, the percentage of the total budget that goes towards paying those who work directly with students, our teachers and classified staff, is going down and has been for several years, while money we spend on services and operating expenses is climbing. We would hope to see the reverse. Last year in Buellton, when faced with a similar situation, we formed a budget advisory committee and a district advisory committee consisting of a variety of stakeholders, parents and teachers included. In addition, we held 2 town hall meetings where the public could participate in a conversation about the budget and impending cuts, because it is frustrating sitting through a board meeting, hearing discussion of cuts and not being able to ask questions or offer solutions. As someone who's been through this, I know that parents and teachers want to be part of the conversation. They want communication, transparency, and a willingness to work together. I've read tonight's board packet and see that option 3 is what's being recommended tonight. If option 3 calls for $250,000 in additional cuts, why are we looking at $405,000 in staffing reductions for next year? As a side note, I will say that your 30% reserve sounds awfully good compared to the 4 to 8% reserve we are holding in Buellton. As a parent and an educator, I urge you to keep these cuts as far away from students as possible. Please involve your stakeholders as much as possible and work together to help us get through these challenging times. I thank you for your time and your dedication to our kids.
Rory Burnett.
Hello, my name is Rory Burnett. Some of you know me, some of you not. Your son, Brian, and I went to school together, to a trade school. A decision that I made to go and do because of going through the automotive program here at Santa Ynez High School. And it was a stepping stone to launch my career, to be able to make a great living, buy a home in Santa Ynez, and continue to be a taxpayer to put back into this community, which I love so much. Everybody here has said pretty much some pretty amazing things, and I agree with just about everything that they say. And I think that cutting programs for these kids is pretty detrimental to some people who go to this school, where college isn't really for them. If it wasn't for that program, I wouldn't be here saying that. I don't know what else to say really other than
Stokes.
Hi, I'm Bob Stokes. I'm the president of the Wheels and Windmills Car Show nonprofit organization. I wanted to speak because I just found out about this today, so I didn't have a lot of time to prepare. I hope you'll accept that. I've supported the Auto Shop program and Santa Ynez High School for 20 years. We supported the Auto Shop program specifically for the last 10 years. I was very much interactive with Rick Patton and also very much interactive with Rob Hill now. I've also met many of the students and interacted with many of them too, including the Pirate team. All through the years, we've been at least on the outside looking in with the program and doing everything we could to support it. It's had its ups and downs, we'll admit that. But the one thing that has been good to the whole program has been the teachers. Ray Patton gave his heart and soul for that program, and Rob Hill is doing the same. We started donating to the program funds to help keep it alive and functioning. We've now, in the 10 years we've been doing it, have donated over $50,000 to the program to try and help and make ends meet, so to speak. The idea of eliminating the teachers or the program, to me, is just an injustice. There's no reason for it. There are other ways, as people have already stated, to make that happen. Okay? Taking the teachers away from the kids, or worse yet, taking the vocational programs away from the kids, is criminal. Not all of the kids are going to be able to go to college. And the vocational program may be the only thing and the only possibility for them going forward. And if you take it away, they're going to be flipping burgers at a McDonald's, believe me, because they won't have many other choices. I want to get to Rob Hill. Rob and I have been very good friends since he took over the program, and he's turned that program around. He has provided more things in the last 3 years than you could possibly think of. To take him away from that program, the program might as well be taken away. Me and my program are proud to be part of that. And to show that, this year, we even came up with money for the Aquatics Foundation to the tune of $12,000. Please, don't let this program or Mystical get away.
Ken Grundyke.
Good afternoon, board. Ken Grundyke, former teacher, coach, still coaching though. Teacher for 36 years here at Santa Ynez High School. I did not prepare any kind of a letter or anything like that. I did write a letter, but I'm speaking from the heart. And when I came up to this valley, moved up here in 1976, was my first year, I was stunned at this school because I couldn't realize that there was such a neat population of kids here and faculty. And at that time, with about 950 kids, every teacher in the school knew every other student or every student. It was just fantastic coming out of Culver City down in LA. Thought I'd dive down to heaven. I think it did. We are very special here at Santa Ynez High School. I think it's a testament, looking back here at the people that have come out tonight or this afternoon, in supporting our school, supporting our teachers, our classified, the kids that are here attending, going on to school. Yeah, I would love to see vocational arts come back here because we need that bad, what's going on today in our society. And the suggestions that were made by former teachers, teachers that are here, colleagues that I knew and respect and care a great deal about are so important. Former board member Bruce, we need to look at every avenue, try to do whatever it takes to try to come up with making this work for our staff without moving staff, without hurting the kids in terms of their preparation, going on to school, whatever that is. And we owe it to them. My kids are 38, 36 now. They came through here and they want to come back here someday. They love it. Okay? And after going out in big cities and so forth, seeing what's out there. We are very, very fortunate to have what we have. And last but certainly not least, Josh McClurg, former student and football player of mine back in the 90s. And I turned over the program to him in the PE office. I don't know if he likes it at all. This young man has a tremendous pride for this high school. His family is here. He's raising his children here. He has put so much time and effort, enthusiasm into this, not only with the kids here at the school, but going into the community and getting the community involved in the school. That's what Santa Ynez Valley is all about. That's why we're so special. We ain't Lompoc. We're not Santa Maria. We're not Santa Barbara. This is Santa Ynez High School. We need to be proud of it, and we need to do whatever it takes to keep our staff intact, keep the kids excited about coming to school here and moving on. I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Stu Gildred.
Stu Gildred, I've got a son that's a sophomore here, and thank you for your time. I know it's a difficult position, so you guys have a lot on your plate. I just want to encourage you that this is a special community, a community that you're part of, and so this is about us coming together as a community and making the right choices. We've heard from Bruce Porter and Ken Grundyke, Lisa Melby, and we have other options. I don't want you guys to feel like you're back up against the wall. We've got to do something now. Like what Lisa said, let's get the community involved. Let's get the stakeholders in here and give this wonderful community a chance to resolve this issue and save these jobs, because we can do that. We do have that option. You do have reserves. When my dad was thinking about starting the YMCA, they did a study, and the study came back and said that this community didn't have enough people to support YMCA. Does anybody agree with that? The parking lot's packed. Okay, it's a testament of our community and how we can solve our problems, because we are special. And I'm actually a little emotional because we should be giving Coach McClurg an award. We have this guy. I mean, we should be fighting to keep him at all costs. Why? Because it's not a number on a budget. It's somebody that cares more than anybody about the students and the impact he makes on these guys' lives. Listen to these guys. This is the kind of teacher you want to keep at your school at all costs, because it's all about heart for Josh. And guys, I believe in you. Let's pull together this community, find options, don't cut these jobs, programs.
Ashley Quill.
I'm a little shorter than everybody else, so no. I'm not going to talk about numbers. Personally, I deal with numbers all day, every day in math and tutoring. I'm just going to talk about facts. When we look at the board packet, we see a list of reasons why it would be bad to get rid of teachers in the specific categories. Why it would be bad to get rid of a superintendent, a principal, or vice principal. In all of the administrative categories, they were paragraphs of reasons why we should not let them go. For teachers and people that are in our staff, it was all bullet points with short little phrases, 1 to 2 bullet points. There are some huge bullet points that are missing from that. One of them, how many of us teachers have been dealt with so many of these students that come to us and tell us, hey coach, hey teacher, I've got a drug issue. I've got an alcohol problem. I've been trying to commit suicide. I am being abused at home. We are so much more than just a teacher. We are a second parent. We are these kids' family members. And I will fight for every single kid that goes to this school, and every kid in this room knows that. And you know who else is like that? Josh McClurg. Josh McClurg will never walk away from anybody. He is always willing to help everybody. He instills some great emotion, great pride. Nobody else at our campus can do half of what he is doing. He is not replaceable in anything that he does. And if this board believes that he is replaceable, you are so wrong. Our school will be negatively impacted by the loss of Josh. He has been a role model to me, and I am only successful because of Josh. Josh makes me want to be like him, and I cannot say enough good things about him. He's offered me a position to coach football under him. I would be the first female coach, but I would never even consider coaching for any other football coach other than Coach McClurg because of what he stands for and what he's willing to do for our students. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Martinez. As I was hearing as the students, teachers, and parents speak, it spoke out to me to urge and speak out what's right. This place is considered my home because of the teachers here, and I've gotten the opportunity to continue an education. I am also aware that many teachers and classes would be cut. Many students are here from different clubs and know that this place is home, whether it's theater, track, football, East, etc. I have had the privilege to be part of the ag program, and if I knew that the teachers would be cut, I would feel a sense of loss, just like the students here are fighting for. So please take consideration of the faculty that have created a home to these students. Please don't take that away from these highly academic students. We all have passions and goals. If you walk away out here with your same thoughts, you have learned nothing about our school and our passions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Most of the people in here somewhat know me from football, from school, whatever. I'm here to speak on behalf of my ex-coach, still coach. I still call him coach no matter what. He means so much to me personally and to this community. And I can't, there's so many things that he's done for me that I can never repay him for. And me standing up here is, I feel in a way I can help repay him. Junior year, one of my closest friends, excuse me, had committed suicide, and Coach McClurg was one of the very first people to text me and ask if I was all right, and if I ever needed anything, sorry, that I should talk to him and ask for any help. He was there for me, and what that means to me is more than anything. People say that he's like another parent, and I strongly believe that. If I ever needed any guidance or anything, I'd go to him first. I have a younger brother who's right there, and I want him to be able to experience the same emotion, and I want him to have the same experience and connection that I have with Coach McClurg, because it's super special to me. He's one of the greatest mentors of my life, and it would be an awful, terrible decision to get rid of him, because the future of students coming in and meeting this man should be extremely one of the most important things to you guys to see. Thank you.
Are you? Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm Jill Ross.
husband and I have Recovery Ranch. I'm sure many people are familiar. We deal with men 18 and over. We don't have a program for youth. But Coach McClurg, he is that program here at the school. I firmly believe that. Our students are looking to be part of a brotherhood or a sisterhood. And that's kind of what I felt these kids represented. They felt like they were a part of. Our academics lead us to one place, you know, black and white, math, there's an answer. But then there's a whole other aspect of the vocational studies here at the school that our children need. They need a creative outlet. I think the most impactful speeches I heard were the gentleman that graduated the auto program, the sportsmanship. These boys, these football boys, water polo boys, track kids, you see such a representation here of those kids because they are part of something, and I know how important that is. I'm an emotional person, and I know you're not supposed to make a decision based on emotion. So I just ask that I'm sure that's why you guys were actually here, because you are able to make a firm decision. I just ask you to take your time with that, because it's so important that our kids here in the Valley have that group, brother and sisterhood. I can't stress it too enough, because we see these boys that come into our program, 18 and over, that never had that. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Christy Hunt. I have a freshman here. I'll be really brief. When I heard about this meeting today, I mentioned it to someone in the community, just in passing, and she's an older person, doesn't have kids here, never did. And she said that she saw something in the paper about the robotics program a while ago, and she was moved to call the school to see if she could financially help. No one ever called her back. She waited, and then finally she said, well, I'll just send a check. I'm just going to mail in a check. So she did. She sent $500 to the robotics program. She told me today, no one ever wrote her a thank you note. No one ever followed up with an email to show her what her money did. No one ever put her on a list and asked for more money, which she would have given. So I just want to follow up with Stu said, which is if we could use the reserves for a little while and kind of put this to the community, we might be surprised. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Last one, you're the lucky winner. Thanks for your patience, everyone.
I'll be brief also. I just heard about it today.
Name?
I'm sorry, my name is Dan Hoagland. I have a son that that graduated from here through the auto program. He is now an ASE certified master mechanic because of this program. He works here in the Valley doing some custom cars. That is some pretty neat stuff for him. I'm here with a bunch of friends. We call ourselves the Pacific Valley Street Rods. We all came from a vocational class such as this. We have a gem in Mr. Hill. He gives his heart, he gives his life for this class. Like other coaches that are here, he is a coach, a kid's coach. He has done so much for these kids. We can work with these kids. They'll talk to us as adults. They have come so far in such a short period of time with Mr. Hill that this program is super important. It should be kept. The whole community is behind it. Please, as they say, there's a lot of time to think about things, it sounds like. Be sure you think it through. We have teachers that are true gems in this valley that give their all. Please do what's right for these guys.
Thank you, Dan. All right, first of all, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending today. Students, I know you have commitments, homework, practice, etc., but I greatly appreciate your time here. Parents, community members, thank you very much. I am pleased with the level of respect for each other, towards each other, towards the board. A very wonderful conversation. We've listened. We're going to move on and have some information about this. You're more than welcome to stay, and we'll proceed. So I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Corey.
Okay, I would like to read something. As a preface to our board discussion this afternoon, I'd like to read something for those in the audience that are not aware of the reason for this discussion. In the absence of this information, what we're about to discuss seems like the most unreasonable conversation to have. We are in the most difficult of financial positions. Conversation about reducing staff, valuable employees, is the hardest kind of conversation we can have as a school district. Santa Ynez High School and Foothill High School are great schools because of our employees. Our programs for students are great because of our employees. Thank you to those in attendance for supporting our staff. Your presence here is a testimony to their value. In the face of very tough decisions, I've heard, and I've heard prior to this meeting, that we should do nothing, spend our reserve, that the numbers are not real, that a reserve can cover the structural deficit. With all of the budget work that we have done, this appears to be simply not true. We've made reductions in the past couple of years, as you've heard, but it has not been enough. I would like to draw your attention to the screen to speak to this point. There are also handouts on the way out for those of you that want to take some of those home. So the question has been asked, and anytime you build a budget, you heard reference, board, to 3 years, and you notice anytime, and for the sake of the audience as well, anytime that we build a budget, we are required to go out 3 years. So current year and 2 out years. Required by the state of California and have to be approved by the county first to certify those budgets that we can meet both current year obligations and our 2 out years. And budgets are judged and rated on that as either positive, qualified, or negative for 3 years. It's a requirement. And so anytime you see numbers like this, this is reflecting a multi-year look, again, required to do that. So the first one up there is, and the recommendation that you see in the packet has been for $405,137. So what happens in those 3 years, including our reserve, which is substantial. There's no arguing that. If we make $405,137 in reductions by 21-22 school year, we will have $3 million in reserve and a structural deficit of $733,325. That's been the reserve down from the current 6.5 to $3 million. If we make no reductions, because I've heard this before, we heard a lot of it tonight, and I hear you about not doing anything and spending our reserves to buy us some time. If you're looking at a 3-year look, if we make no reductions for the next 3 years, by the 21-22 school year, we'll have a structural deficit of $1.3 million and no reserve will be insolvent. You've heard that term as well. All right, and then the last part, for those of you who are not familiar, we have a situation with a local charter school that we are being required to pay for. And as what's called a basic aid school district or a community funded district with our taxes. Unlike other districts that are not community funded, about 90% of the districts in the state, they receive a dollar for dollar backfill. We do not. So that number could be as high by the end of the year as $1.2 million, something we definitely have to prepare for. So what we're about to go through is some things that the board asked me to bring back in terms of other scenarios or possibilities for reductions, and we've heard you loud and clear, by the way, and thank you very much for your passion and care for the staff. I want to reiterate that. We do have some other conversations that we need to have, and we'll be making some time this week to do that and have specific conversations about some of the things that we've heard this evening. So we've heard you, okay? So I want to take a look at the scenarios that I prepared for the board. In your packet, you will see staffing ratios for the 4 core subjects, for math, science, English, and social science. The board in the past has asked to make a commitment to protecting class sizes in those. You will see that, and you heard this evening as well, that we did not backfill a position when an English teacher retired a couple of years ago. There was a significant concern that class sizes would go up, and you can see by those numbers that we maintained reasonable class sizes in there. There's also the master schedule for everything that's taught, in addition to there was a request for Spanish as well. And so I want to go over the information that I've given you on options for reduction in staff. And just a reminder to those in the audience, there's no decision being made this evening. this is a discussion item. Okay. So I'm just going to go straight down these. If any members of the board have questions for me, each of those, you're certainly welcome to answer those. Okay, let's start with special education. We had a vacancy for a position that occurred this year, and I worked with the Special Education Consortium to not backfill that position, and we were able to have a cost savings to the tune of $113,000. That was a significant gift for us. There was a question about Spanish and what would happen, and again, these are all hypotheticals, if we had a reduction of an FTE. For those in the audience, an FTE is a full-time employee, so one full-time teacher is an FTE. And as you look at class loads for next year, even if you keep the same number of staff, there are some significant increases in courses. Just a note that this is an A3G requirement as well, and you can see what those 3 and 2 year requirements are. Yes, ma'am. Can you speak into the microphone there? I can repeat your question if I need to.
Because you're starting.
Chris, you'll need to speak just a little bit closer.
The local control funding formula for the school districts, because I'm looking at all of these vocational things that are on here. I think the audience needs to really be aware, and if you could refresh my memory of when we lost the state funding for our ROP programs.
Oh, correct.
Because it's a very significant factor, has been, I think, one of the most critical things that happened to this school. Could you, before you start into this, explain when this local control funding formula came in that resulted in our losing our ROP funds, which was something around 700,000, which is like 7, 8 teachers. And we have been trying to recover from that, and to also mention what happened to them when we had to pay all that money for our fair share. There's some really big items that I think everyone needs to know that we've been dealing with.
Sure. So what Mrs. Burgess is saying is that back in 2013-14, when the local control funding formula, which is controls 90% of the districts in the state, we at the County Office of Education, Santa Barbara County Office of Education, had been flowing $700,000 to our district. And that $700,000, with the advent of that local control funding formula, we were told that we had a 2-year phase out on those monies. So we lost $350,000 in 14-15 and another $350,000 in 15-16. And so we have accounted for about $350,000 of those dollars through attrition, and when we've had retirees that we haven't backfilled, we've accounted for about $350,000 of that. The other $350,000 is still yet to be reconciled. Does that answer that for you, Mrs. Bernice? Sure. There was a fair share hit that we took. Actually, I believe that precedes my time here as well with the fair share hit, where there was a recognition by the state legislature that basic aid districts were receiving such a higher per pupil amount that there needed to be a fair share hit for school districts. And so we began realizing that. I believe it was in 13-14 as well, and that was to the tune of about $607,000 for our district. I can't recall that exact number. Yes, Eileen?
Thank you. If we could just add to that in terms of clarification for our Santa Ynez staff, as well as all members of our community, the difference between, or what we are faced with as a basic aid school district. So I think we need to elaborate on that a little bit.
So could you restate that for me? I'm not sure I'm tracking.
Just sort of give a more of a clearer overview or more detailed overview of us being a basic aid school district versus Britton's.
Sure. So a basic aid school district, property taxes are such that, given that we live in a very high value property value, think real estate area in the state of California, there's a formula that's crunched that if your property values and community or county assets are such that they're so high you go into what's called basic aid status. So our property taxes go to the county and are reallocated back to us as a community funded or basic aid district. For the rest of the state of California, 90% of the school districts in the state of California, taxpayer dollars go to Sacramento and then are allocated back with a different formula than ours. And so we have a higher per pupil amount of funds allocated to us than the rest of the districts in the state.
I have a question too, please, Mr. Corey. I think you explained it to me very clearly, the reason why LCFF schools that are funded by the state are allowed to have lower reserves than basic aid districts. So you will have 2 or 4% for LCFF schools, but for basic aid districts, it's supposed to be between 25 to 40%. Is that correct?
So for non-basic aid districts, 3% for
Based on ADA, so the legally required limit is still based on ADA, but the recommended reserve for a basic aid district is considerably higher because the state will not come in and backfill any losses.
So for us, given some of the risk factors with budgets that we experience, given things like the Refugio oil spill and a reduction in per oil dollars that we receive funds for, typically there's a little more volatility, and so a higher amount is recommended. Ours right now is certainly, it is quite a bit, no doubt about that, but yeah, there is a need for basic aids to have a higher reserve limit to protect from some of that volatility.
And this is why the board made that decision a few years back to try to maintain 30%, is that correct?
Correct, 30%. And so to speak to that very quickly and just for the audience, so we have 30% of our budget is set aside as a reserve right now that is not supposed to be touched except for economic uncertainties. We have significantly more than that right now, but it grows each year. As our budget grows at a couple percentage points each year, that grows as well. One of the recommendations we have before the board at the March 12 meeting next Tuesday is we go from a 30% amount of each year's budget, which increases, to a static amount, so that there's not that increase that's being taken away from things like staffing, which is obviously very important.
Thank you.
Yep, Dr. Baking.
For the benefit of the audience, obviously the overwhelming opinion tonight is that they would like most of the shortfall that we're experiencing and will be experiencing to be managed with a reduction of our reserve fund. I think it might be beneficial if you just a second ago briefly touched on one hypothetical, that would be continued loss of oil revenue. But if you could give several more realistic hypothetical of things that could happen, of which if we did not have adequate protection with the reserve fund, then that would reap huge adverse consequences for us. And what those consequences would be. I am completely in support of protecting every single teacher here, every single secretary here, every single administrator here. But everybody needs to understand, Scott, what is the very real risk that could happen if we, in essence, throw caution to the wind and say, let's go ahead and run that reserve fund down as far as we possibly can. So please give us several real-world hypotheticals that could happen.
Sure. Well, so I'll let Alicia speak to some of those other details, but certainly the first thing that we need to change, we're protecting too much now with a 30% growing reserve each year, and our reserve has grown about 100K just based, how do I say that? In terms of our reserve amount from property taxes, it's been about 100K a year, which we simply can't justify if we're looking at staff reductions. And so that static amount comes with a little more risk, but it certainly is the right thing to do.
The 3 most recent cases in point with the highest magnitude burst would be Olive Grove Charter School. Being a basic aid school district, when a charter is approved either by our district directly, the county, or the state, which in this case is what happened, the state came in and overrode our denial and approved the charter school, we are required to pay them what's called in lieu property taxes. As of right now, we're scheduled at between $700,000 and $1.2 million this year that we are legally required as of this point in time to pay Olive Grove.
we're fighting that, and we haven't done so yet, but an additional $1.2 million out of thin air towards, on the budget expenditure side that we don't get backfilled from the state is a huge impact to the budget. And there's nothing to say that another charter school won't come in and petition, and it's not impossible or difficult to deny a charter, but as we've seen in this case, even if we deny the charter, we're still not fully protecting our budget because they can go on to the county and then the state and still be approved, against our wishes, and we will still be liable. So the state does,
And that's an ongoing.
and that's ongoing unless, right now they have been approved for 5 years. So as of right now, legally, we're obligated to pay Olive Grove Charter. Right now, they're at about $793,000. They're estimating it'll be closer to 1.2 this year. If we are required by a court of law to pay them, that's another $1.2 million in expenditures that we didn't budget for because it wasn't something that we were planning on having. Another case in point would be the new governor. So the new governor has taken all of the one-time funds that were given to school districts in the form of grants and has decided that a better priority would be to pay down STRS. So while that helps in the long run for school districts' unfunded liabilities, it effectively takes away some of the one-time revenue that we have been relying on the past 5 years or so. So we have things like new governors, new funding formulas, new charter schools, things that we don't have any control over. Those are the things that the reserve is there for.
But does it need to be less? Absolutely. Okay, so is this the most helpful way for me to go through this line by line for you? I just want to make sure that I'm doing right by the board. Okay, Ms. Bartness, go ahead. So your regional, wow, too many syllables, I guess. Regional occupational program, it is essentially school to work programs, so things like our restaurant program, auto shop, those kinds of things. As far as those monies coming back, no, Governor Brown dug his heels in and said via the local control funding formula, basic aids, you're on your own, figure it out. But as far as the county office, they were hit dramatically by that, hence our loss of those funds, and they're not coming back. It's a per dollar amount fixed per formula that's not going to be increased, so we get another pass-through for those dollars. We are going after grant funding, those sorts of things as they come up, but the pass-through is done.
I have heard that the revenue sharing, the control revenue sharing schools do get that vocational money. We were like the prize program out there, and I just feel like who's representing basic aid school districts in Sacramento?
So in regards to the route, so local control funding formula districts, LCFF districts, they have all the categoricals, there are special pots of money that used to come to districts were all lumped into one per student amount. It's up to those school districts to spend that how they see fit. It's a higher per pupil amount for those districts now than it used to be, significantly so than it was a few years ago. But it's up to them to decide how to spend it. For us, they figure we are already receiving a higher per pupil amount, so we won't see any adjustments or anything from Sacramento unless it's in the form of a grant, which we have gone after those. The CTE incentive grant, Career Tech Ed, we've been going after those, but no regular dollars. Okay. Yes.
You and I talked about this before, but I'm re-asking the question for the benefit of others. If we are completely unsuccessful with all of our appeals and legal attempts to avert the ongoing Olive Grove expenditures, so in other words, for the next several years, we have that annual hit to our budget. Please comment on what the desirability may be if we were to become a state aid school district, or the same thing asked a little differently. How would today's conversation have been affected if we were not a basic aid school district, but if we were a state aid school district?
So the difference for us between basic aid and state aid is roughly $3 million. We just actually got some updated numbers the other day, assuming those numbers are correct on the CDE website. The difference, the gap between being state funded and basic aid is $3 million. It is significantly more desirable to be basic aid. Unfortunately, we are very solid in the basic aid formula. We do not want to be an LCFF district. Any other relief that we might get as a result of that would just be minuscule compared to what we would lose as, by virtue of being a basic aid district.
Because that's something that patrons who have emailed me have inquired about. And I think that's maybe a point that we've not let the teachers, parents, and the patrons adequately understand.
Yeah, we do not want to fall out of basic aid. That is our best case scenario, easily. Okay, any questions? All right. Sure. Physical education, this was certainly PE class sizes would increase. We do have other PE credentialed teachers that could be reassigned to backfill as needed, but certainly other elective programs would be impacted as well due to the reassignment. But yes, there would be an increase in PE class sizes. The reason I have numbers 4, 5, and 6, sure, go ahead.
What's the increase in PE class size?
Actually, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but it was, I don't recall off the top of my head. It was not as significant as in the case of, say, Spanish, but there would be an increase. The largest class size we have right now is Josh's weight training class for his football team. Josh, do you know averages in the other?
38, 42, 36, 33, 34.
Okay, so between 30 and 40,
Scott,
upper 30s.
How many PE teachers do we have, and are each one of them equally at risk?
So in the case of credentialing at the high school level, it is by content area unless a teacher has multiple credentials. So it's not like an elementary school district where every elementary teacher has a liberal studies credential and there's a straight seniority list and you make that decision off the bottom of the list. At the secondary level, where they're content area specific, a math teacher can't teach art, science, can't teach, you pick your subject, you can't commingle unless you have a credential specific to that area. So what happens is that there may be a less senior teacher teaching something else in another content area that's been here 2 or 3 years, and you could have someone that's been here 10 or 15 years in another content area, and that's where reductions are made, and then the less senior teacher in the other content area would stay. It's by credential.
Based on the number of speakers tonight in support of Coach McClure, is it fair for me to assume that he is our most at-risk coach?
That's correct. PE teacher, yes. Go ahead.
Does he have any other classes that he is capable of teaching?
Other, you mean in terms of other credentials? As far as I know, PE is the one credential, is that correct?
Health supplement, but we don't have health anymore.
Health supplement, okay.
Health, but we don't have health anymore.
The reason I have numbers 4, 5, and 6 as an English backfill option is that when we can, we try to if we can through attrition, and there's a need to reduce staffing, we try to do that with existing staff. If you look at options 1, 2, and 3, there are some pretty significant consequences there from an instructional standpoint that occur if that happens. It's not something I would recommend. And, we have certainly made a reduction in English already, anyway, I would not recommend those, but I would want to put them there for posterity with the board in case that was a consideration. Auto shop, yes, go ahead.
I don't want to go too far away because I think they're already going back ready to finish with English because I agree I've taken something enough. I would like you to explain to everybody what the A through G requirement is in Spanish. I want to know what the graduation requirement is now, what is recommended. I think the A through G is something
Sure.
that a lot of people don't.
Sure, just wanted to let you go look on that there.
So the University of California, and by extension the California State University system, and then also many private universities rely on a series of courses, the A through G requirements. Those are courses in a variety of academic disciplines. There are elective courses which meet certain ones. So each of those letters, and I don't have it at the top of my head, but A might be the English requirement, and it's a 4-year English requirement to be accepted into UC. So in order to be qualified as a candidate to apply to UC or CSUs and some private schools, you have to meet these requirements and have taken these classes in high school that are pre-approved by the UC Board of Regents to be UC classes. So the A through G, you have English, math, science, social studies, lab science, and physical science and life science requirements. You have 2-year requirement in foreign language, you have 3 years recommended, and then you have to meet your G elective. So there's the sort of laundry list of courses that you have to take. So when you see on the list here that some of the courses would be lost, would be A through G qualified courses. That means they have applied for recognition by the UC system as UC qualified courses.
I did have one other question here that goes up to the very first thing, and that is special education.
Sure.
Continues to be a very uncertain expenditure, sort of whether a particular need is at any given time or year.
Sure, we have roughly $100,000 increase a year. If you include special education, which we incur all costs for those teachers, and include them with the SYHS staff or food wheel staff, it's 75% of our budget. So there's pushing right at $1 million in special education right now.
And I guess it's repetitive, but is the state looking to help districts in any way to deal with their special education?
So yes, there is a look at that, how much traction that gets. We don't yet know. Special education is one of those situations when there are legitimate needs for special needs students, obviously, but you have finite funds and unlimited need conceivably that can flux greatly throughout, from year to year. Or we could have a student that walks through the door tomorrow that has some really significant needs that require costs to be applied to meet those needs. And so those can fluctuate greatly. But yes, there is a state conversation about how to help when you've got these unfunded mandates that come with special education as well, just with special education law. How do we increase funding for some of those things, because it is having a pretty detrimental effect on a lot of districts. So
I know we have the consortium where we are in the special education program with other schools in the valley. Historically, what is happening? Are we being hit historically now higher, lower? What?
yeah, we've had a couple little blips where we've had students that have required transportation needs or non-public school placement, those kinds of things that have added a spike, but the overall trend is roughly 1.5% a year, right at 100,000 a year increase. Okay?
So, Mr. Corey, I'm thinking about the trickle-down effect here at many, many levels, whether it is the administrative assistants, whether it's the classroom teacher. I'm trying to look at this in the big picture, realizing that at some point in time we have to do something. So if we look at the A through G requirement, and it's our hope that our students have all the opportunities to be prepared for college, because that's kind of what we're in the business of doing. What happens down the road, let's say, if we had to cut an English teacher or a math teacher or whatever? So we increase class size, then the students are not as prepared because they don't have as much contact with their teacher as hard as they tried. Is there any other way to soften that a little bit with classroom assistants or aides, or how does that look in your mind?
So if you're talking about personnel, that would be a board decision. There's no,
right.
no substitute for the classroom teacher for getting those things done.
Right.
Yeah, so if you're looking at actual bodies in there to assist, that those come with personnel costs.
Sure.
Certainly.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Just want to remind the board that last year, the year before, in discussion, we made a commitment as we go through this process that we wanted to keep cuts as far away from the core program as we could. Not saying that any other program is not as important, but the core, the essential, and this is what you're talking about with A through G, et cetera. So math, science, social studies, English. Just a friendly reminder. Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Given the fact that we're looking at huge cuts affecting personnel, what are the assignments of money that have not been spent yet? Things like, I know we have parking lot, baseball bleachers. Are there any other planned expenditures that could possibly be cut?
Could you restate? She was just heading out for just a minute. Could you use the microphone there?
The planned expenditures, such as baseball bleachers, the parking lot, that this board or previous boards have put money aside for and have not yet been spent yet. Are there any other planned expenditures that are out there that are on the books that we could cut?
I mean, in a short answer, yes. Technically, all supply budgets are on the table, depending on what teachers and board and staff think are adequate supply budgets. But there are only certain supply budgets that we absolutely can't cut. So I mean, I guess it depends on what the priority is. So like, there's no large major expenditures if that's what you're asking for, but technically everything can be on the table. Nothing else is.
But there's no really large budget.
Not that has been assigned, that has not been spent. The major thing we have right now in either an assigned or committed is the ancillary Measure K funds, the parking lot project funds, which is another Measure K project.
Could you expand on the ancillary?
Yes. So at the very beginning, when Measure K was passed, there was the consensus in the community that the district had not been doing enough to address deferred maintenance and those types of things, and that the district needed to have skin in the game, so to speak. So in order for the district to help support Measure K projects and complete projects that were ancillary to Measure K projects, such as the landscaping around a new area that was, pulled up and new concrete laid down, that type of thing, would not be something we could have paid for out of Measure K funds. So the board decided to set aside $500,000 for any ancillary projects, painting of, new buildings, that type of stuff. Basically any project that was brought up as a result of a Measure K project that could not be done or paid for with Measure K funds, that was set aside. We have about $325,000 left in that. And then we have the bleacher project, and then we have the $500,000 that was set aside for the parking lot.
Yeah, go ahead.
Continuing on Laura's comments, everybody here should know, if they don't, that we're legally bound to spend the Measure K monies on rehabilitation and construction. None of those monies can be diverted for anything that we're talking about tonight.
Correct.
Here's my next question. There are a few classes which possibly I'm naive, but they always seemed a bit redundant to me, such as U.S. History from Allen Hancock College and U.S. History AP. And as the father of a student, I remember when she was deciding what classes to take, the question was, well, what are the relative merits, demerits of one versus the other? So my question to you is there enough duplicity between an AHC and an AP class of the same subject that we could delete the AP offering and go just with the Allen Hancock one? And B, is the financial hit to the district of a subject being taught by Allen Hancock less than the same subject that's being taught by one of our faculty?
So the courses that you're referring to, the Hancock U.S. history class is actually taught by a district employee. The difference between dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment, which are the two variations of Hancock classes that our students can take, is that concurrent enrollment classes are taught by our faculty on our campus, and the district receives a small honorarium, I guess, I think $1,000 a unit. If it's a 4-unit class, they get $4,000. That money does two things. One is it has to pay the health fee for the students at Hancock. Actually, that's taken out. Is that correct? Before they give it to us? So, but it comes out of that $1,000, and then the rest of it is supposed to be used for textbooks for those classes. So, all of our students have to take U.S. history, and in current configuration, they're all taking it from district employees. So there's really no reason not to offer the stratification, AP and Hancock, because it meets the needs of different students in a different way.
But Hancock also provides college credit.
Hancock provides guaranteed college credit. AP is college credit for students who get a 3 or higher on the AP exam. And it's really more of a preference for students whether they would prefer to have AP or community college courses on their transcript.
So is there room for some budgetary cutbacks by blending those two?
I don't see how. Students all still need to take U.S. history, and they're currently all taking it from our district employed teachers. So I don't see we would still have to offer those classes. What title we put on them wouldn't matter. We still need those sections and those seats for students to take U.S. history.
I don't know if this answers your question, but all the teachers, since they are our faculty, they are all on the same salary schedule. So we're not paying those that teach AP or those that teach Allen Hancock College any differently, if that helps go to that question.
Okay. Auto shop. I don't know if you have any questions on auto shop, but certainly the value there. As one of our ROP courses, and again, meeting image for certain students there, our department, again, you'll see the UC requirements there as well, and both of those have the impact of if there were reductions there, but there would be increases in class sizes. Same thing with band and choir, those reasons are equal. You'll note on number 11, currently we have a teacher that is a 1.2 FTE, so more than the definition of full-time. You heard this referenced this evening and advocated for as the Intro to Ed class that is being taught by Peg Kelly. And so the recommendation, not the recommendation, an option certainly for the board is to go from 1.0 or from 1.2 to 1.0 FTE.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Can I interrupt, please?
You sure can.
What is our current enrollment in the Intro to Ed class, please? Do you know that?
It's not high, roughly. That class draws a small but dedicated enrollment. I think it's probably at about 15 or 16 students at this point.
I think it's 19.
19, thank you, Ms. Cowan.
Okay, same thing in East. Mr. Fananga has been doing teaching at 1.2 FTE for numerous years, and so that is a possible option for some savings. And then we have some classified positions in regards to staff services technician, and that serves as a currently, as you heard this evening, the secretary for the teachers, and also as the athletic director, secretary handles supply orders, delivers copies. You can see those things listed there. In-house suspension supervisor.
Excuse me.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just curious.
Can you speak right into that microphone there, Chris? I know you don't like that.
Having taught at this high school for over 30 years, I remember staff services as being, it's a wonderful service for our teachers. I'm just wondering, curious, has the task load increased or decreased with technology? I know we had technology when I was teaching, but I think it's... Is the load different? I remember June Peterson, I'm really dating myself, working just wondering, is that load for our staff services helped with the newer technology, that maybe something could be done more in the classroom with printers in the teacher's classroom?
Are you looking for a teacher to answer that?
Yes. Good.
That would be the best person to go to.
Just remember that that current job is also absorbed Susan Goday's job, so it's 2 in 1 from when he used to be here as well. So that current job is
financial.
yeah, it's 2 jobs. That used to be when you were working here, that was 2 separate jobs. Now it's 1. They combined it, so it's a 2 in 1 job.
Okay.
So we do print in our classrooms, but she does all of the physicals for the athletes. I'm the athletic trainer, and I know our ADs here
That's
somewhere.
my staff service.
Yeah, that's a huge service to all of our athletes.
Okay.
I don't
Susan Goday's job as well.
Right.
She
Which
provides
is
actual, she helps clubs as well with some of their paperwork, so NHS, CSF. She helps them registering, ordering tassels, that kind of stuff. So she helps with club work. As far as technology, since we don't already have infrastructure for technology in our classrooms, and we have individual printers, which we have been told in the past that will not be replaced if they break. So that's kind of been taken away from us as well in individual classrooms. And so they encourage us to use the staff services. But with also, like, so for example, math department not having textbooks, we print quite a bit. So the workload has actually increased, as far as I know, for her.
For her, since we don't have our textbooks, she's literally our publishing company. She's printing it on colored copies, double side, anything we want. She's our kinko.
I hear you on that.
Everything for us.
I have a close friend who, she's telling me she's having to create a textbook, that they're not there, and that she has to constantly be making copies.
And also for like Canvas and things that we have to scan or upload, sometimes the services don't work, so she does that for us as well, where she has to get us those documents.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we were on in-house suspension supervisor. The tasks that are pretty obvious, and what happens, and you heard from Gordon this evening. Registrar, currently we have a 12-month employee that serves as registrar, and there's a possible option to go from 12 to 10. Summer guidance office coverage would be reduced somewhat. There's still an employee in there throughout the summer. Mrs. Burtis.
I don't know whether the board is aware, but Mr. White also gave us, because I was going to ask how many students are on the average in our in-house.
Yes, that's all in there for you.
And it's all here, but is there, because I haven't had time to look at it, is it a significant number? It looks like it is, but.
Depending on the time of the year, that can be a busy place. Comes and goes, but yes, it can
On
be.
that same subject, this last column, teacher, that's Hawes, Morris, Kroll, Phil. So is that the staff that is then, whose time is being devoted to the in-school suspended student?
No, Mr. Haas, I'm assuming those are teachers that assigned. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, you do. Okay, you haven't seen the list. Never mind. Sorry to draw your mind.
No, that's what it is. It's teachers who.
It's who referred.
Yeah.
So referring them to the
Yes.
It is the most frequently used manner we have for taking students who are having trouble in classrooms with behavior, whatever it might be, and we use that as a way of giving them a gentle little consequence to help wake them up a bit about disruption, enhancing learning in the classroom.
Right. Thank you.
So again, just to be clear, it's the column that John is talking about is the teacher that is referred to in-house suspension. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on the registrar position? All right. Superintendent principal, eliminate, oh my gosh, mouth is getting tired. Eliminate the principal position and create a superintendent principal position. If you have questions on those duties, we can certainly help you with those. And then principal. Correct, that's the savings. Yes, and then principal, vice principal, same thing there as well, making that one position. And there's the associated savings.
I do have a question.
Sure.
When was the last time this high school had a principal superintendent?
Dean Anders in the 1990s was the last one, I believe. Anybody out there track memory on that?
1995, Fred Van Riebeck came and he gained 2 positions.
Okay.
Fall of 96.
Fall of 96, thank you.
Well, I can tell you in 1969 we had 2 positions because that's the year I came, and it was Manuel Silva was our principal and George Smith was our superintendent. Little history.
Thank you for the institutional memory on that one.
Previously there were 2 vice principals. A vice principal of curriculum and instruction, which was over in the guidance office, and then a vice principal of student services. That vice principal position in curriculum and instruction was cut about a decade ago. I believe when Jerry Swanich retired again, it was not replaced. So, which was a heavy cut to administration.
Other questions on history? Okay. And then I also included a recommendation for the board to consider. Obviously, we have a lot more to consider in terms of options. If anyone has questions on those, the recommendations, be happy to talk about those at this time, if there are any questions. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. One of the other questions that I had, thank you very much. I did not make it to my iPad. One of the other things that a board member had asked was in regards to the principal's assistant, and then the assistant to the superintendent, and combining the possibility of combining those two as an option for a savings reduction. And unless you have any questions on that, you can see those list of duties for those 2 positions as well. Go ahead, Ms. Preston.
Okay. It seems to me that if these positions were combined, we would have some serious issues of things falling through the cracks, which is, excuse me.
So this was...
we're talking about Scott, go ahead. The admin assistant for the superintendent and the assistant to the principal. Is that correct?
Sure.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
I thought that's where we were.
Yes.
Did I lose something?
No, you did not. That is
Okay.
Mr. Swanick's assistant, and then the assistant to the superintendent is in my office.
Okay, so in looking at that, I'm thinking of a few different things. One of them, again, as I've said, not to belabor the point, but the trickle-down effect of combining positions, such as Mr. Haas was talking about with admin.
Sure.
And then beyond that, the quality of the work environment for the employees.
Sure.
So
and that's applicable to anybody that we're talking
everyone.
about. Yes.
That is what is really, really weighing on me. Certainly the impact on students, no doubt about it, but the impact on employees and what we call an industry burnout. So it would seem to me that if the board were to consider this at all, like all of the other positions that we're looking at, consider the admin assistant position.
Sure, everything should be considered.
That if we look at that, then in this conversation, we never lose sight of the impact on the staff.
Correct.
Whether it's an administrator, a classroom teacher, or any of our administrators, assistants, all of the positions. So it's a worry for me.
Ms. Babcock.
Thank you.
I understand, Mrs. Preston, your concern, and I think it's valid. I also think that it's been made very evident to us sitting on this side of the room that our constituents want us to keep the cuts as far away from the students and the faculty and the coaches as possible. Having spent 34 years as a teacher, 25 here at Santa Ynez, I feel very deeply that we need to honor that. That's why we were put on the board. I was just newly elected. Several of us are just new to the board, but there's a reason we need to honor our constituents. constituents' views, I think. That's why I appreciate people coming tonight to let us hear how you feel about these things. As some of you know, I have had a long career in education, in the classroom and administration, faced these kinds of situations numerous times. And I want to echo what Mrs. Babcock has mentioned. Keeping these cuts as far away from the classroom, whatever the class is my priority. We are only as good as the students that we produce, whether it's for academics, for athletics, whatever. It's much more about the whole student. And it's been really loud and clear throughout the, I guess it is evening now, what the community wishes. The community elected us to the board to do the right thing. So we're going to do some serious soul searching here, all of us. We're not making a decision tonight. The decision will be made next week. But I think for me, personally, I want to keep this as far away from the classroom as I can. It may not be 100%, but the pirate pride and the value of who we have working with our students on a daily basis in the classrooms, out on the athletic fields, in the offices, etc., is what makes us Santa Ynez High. All right, so with that, John? Sure.
Thank you. I've listened very carefully this evening to all the speakers, and by my count, there were 30 of you, and I took notes and listened to every single one. I share the emotion. I share it deeply. To those that don't know, I have a website with a blog, and if anybody goes back and reads the comments that I posted on my blog, you can possibly appreciate the fervor of my convictions towards trying to not just maintain what we have, but when I was campaigning on bringing in new academic programs, bringing on new CTE and VOTEC. This is extremely distressing to me. My mother was a teacher in a public school district in suburban Kansas City for 40 years. For 14 of those years, my father was on the school board. For many of those years, he was the president of the school board. So I humbly say that though the name John Bakey may not be well known here in the Valley, it was extremely well known in Kansas City. So one might think that my mother, as an active teacher, would absolutely have been hands-off. But when that school district, it was a large school district, 63,000 students, and when that school district went through a similar reduction in force, my mother was fired. It wasn't a layoff, but they fired teachers back then. And she wore those scars till the day she died. She cried for years about losing that position. Folks, I feel your pain. I feel your pain on a level that many of you would not expect me sitting up here to have, but I truly do. I can assure you that when this matter is debated amongst the five of us in closed session, I am not going to be quick to support laying off a single one of you. I'm going to be fighting to preserve every single one of your positions, but you need to know that if that's the ultimate outcome, it's not something any of us have taken lightly. I've had many emails this past week with people telling me what not to do, what not to tolerate, and I heard them all. But what I really wished I had were emails which were telling me what then to do. That's what we're all struggling with. It's easy for people to stand up here and with great fervor tell us that this position is more sacred than that position. But what I really yearn to hear, what I really yearn to receive in the course of the next 10 days are emails with people telling us what to do. Because whether we argue whether the staff accounts for 77% or 61% of the budget, the point is it still accounts for the vast majority of the budget. We can argue all day long whether or not we're paying too much for paper clips. but that isn't going to save a teacher's position. And so I'm not just rhetorically making this request, I say it earnestly. I need people to send me emails on what you want me to do, not what you want me not to do. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. All right, so we have had our discussion. That's item D. Thank you very much. We are on to item E, which is board comments and correspondence. I think we probably shot that wad pretty well. Okay. Board matters, upcoming board meeting dates. Just note that the next board meeting on the schedule is March 12th. Check your list on the upcoming events. Lots of stuff going on. March 16th, Pirate Garage. Okay? And with that, we're going to go into closed session. Thank you very much, everyone.